boys and girls, children of all ages. This is At the Helm Sports. I'm your host, Derek Helm. Thank you for joining me for episode 169. Please be sure to follow and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave those 5-star reviews if you're watching on YouTube. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Let me know down in the comment section. Who would you prefer up top this week? Rory McIlroy or Scotty Scheffler at the Genesis Invitational? Because that's what we're going to be diving into this week. Now, obviously, the Waste Management just happened last week, usually one of the best tournaments of the year, but it was a bit of a blowout, so didn't really live up to all the expectations. Kind of got my ass kicked. I actually made a parlay with Scotty top 10 and Justin Thomas top 20. Thomas held up his end of the bargain with an absolute miracle, basically pointless Sunday, but Scotty fell apart on the back nine, so didn't get that one. Had a couple guys fall out of the top 30. Nick Taylor fell out of the top 20. Not a great weekend for me from the Waste Management standpoint. And I had 0 Detry. Now, did not really see him running away by a touchdown, and honestly thought that he might be able to maybe fall back a little bit because I did bet Spieth live in his first round. Spieth obviously went behind that bush and basically never had a chance from there. And I don't think it would have mattered anyway because Detry he played incredible. Good for him. The fact that he had that lead and just did not falter, and anytime he did falter, seemed to just get it right back. It was an impressive performance. I mean, like I said, I didn't have any of the guy. Don't really love the guy. I really didn't think that he would run away with it like that, but he did, and here we are. But it was nice to see Spieth back. Now, I don't know how back he really is. I guess we could see how he performs this week at the Genesis, but it was nice to see him at least in somewhat of contention on a Sunday. Now, obviously, there's still a pretty long road, but it's been a long road to get here for him. You know, obviously, even before the surgery, was not performing all that well. So just the fact to have him back in the mix here is definitely a good thing. And as I said, we're going to dive into the Genesis Invitational here. Obviously, another elevated event. It is Tiger Woods' event. You know, this is the first of the player-hosted events this year. So Tiger was supposed to play. He did withdraw, obviously said he's still not over the loss of his mother, which is understandable, you know, and the fact that we've been seeing him play on TGL, not the same as walking a course, but it is a step in the right direction that he was at least going to try and play this week, has been able to at least swing a club that we've been able to see. So hopefully he is healthy enough that when he is ready to tee it up, he can come back. But for now, you know, he's going to mourn the loss of his mother, and that's fine. Just take up the hosting duties, and maybe we could see him here soon actually tee it up. But there are 72 golfers in the field. Now, these player-hosted elevated events actually do technically have a cut. It's the top 50 and ties and anyone within 10 strokes to the lead. So really, I mean, we could see 60 guys make the cut here, maybe even a little bit more. So there could be some guys cut here, but it'd be nice to have these events, maybe like 100 guys, cut it down to 50. But there is at least the chance that some guys could miss the cut here this week. Now, obviously, with the Palisades fires, Riviera Country Club is fine, but with all the decimation around it, they didn't think it was a good look to have the tournament there. So it's been moved to Torrey Pines, the South Course. Now, obviously, we just saw this a couple weeks ago with the Farmers, but of course, the Farmers is played on the North and South Course in the first 2 rounds. So you get 1 round of the North Course there and then 3 rounds on the South Course. If you are looking at strokes gained metrics from the Farmers, keep in mind that only the South Course has strokes gained data. So a little bit helpful for what we're looking at this week, because any strokes gained that you're looking at are only going to be from that South Course. Now, keep in mind, though, that's only 3 rounds. And then another thing, if you are researching the Farmers to get ready for this week, generally it's a weaker field than what we are going to see this week, obviously, with an elevated event. We just saw it 2 weeks ago where Harris English came out and won. That was a much weaker field than this one. So I would just take it with a grain of salt. But Torrey Pines South Course is the longest course on the PGA Tour rotation, 7,765 yard par 72 with POA greens. Now, obviously, last year Hideki won the Genesis, but that was not played here. So I really don't think that you really want to look too much at that. And as I was saying, you can look at guys that have won at the Farmers before, but maybe not the best history as far as strength of field. The 2021 US Open, however, was played at Torrey Pines, so this could be similar to that, where it's a little bit more difficult of a setup, and we do have some of the better guys here. So I do think that that's worth looking at. There are 10 par fours on the course, the shortest of which is 389 yards. We have two from 400 to 450 yards, six from 450 to 500. And then the 12th hole is a 505 yard. It's the most difficult hole on the course, boasts a 36% bogey rate. These par fours are long. They are definitely treacherous. So you kind of want to just get through them without taking on too much damage. The par threes are a little bit easier. At least two of them are, one of which is 177 yards. The other one plays just over 200 yards. And then you have two over 225 that play rather difficult. So again, there you just kind of treading water. If you can come away with a birdie, then good. But the par fives is really where you want to do your scoring. They're the four easiest holes on the course. They're pretty long in their own right. So not everybody's going to make it there in two. Not a lot of eagles made, but definitely want to do your scoring and try and get those birdies on those par fives. As far as off the tee goes here, fairways are incredibly difficult to hit. Only 52% of fairways hit. That is well below tour average. The rough is very penal here. I mean, we've already seen videos coming out of balls disappearing in the rough. Could get a little bit of rain leading up, which could make it even worse. So the fact that guys are not going to be playing from the fairway for the most part, going to be hitting out of the rough. A lot of guys just look to bomb it as far as they possibly can. So they're hitting a wedge out of the rough more so than a really, really long iron. But regardless, with the length of this course, you're probably going to have to rely on the long irons quite a bit. But as I said, with the bombing strategy, average drive comes in at about 287 yards, which is well above tour average. Now, as I said, combo out of the rough and not hitting out of the fairway, greens and regulation percentages down quite a bit. It's hard to hit greens when you're hitting out of this thick rough, and 26% of all approach shots come from over 200 yards. Another basically 40% are from 150 to 200. So you're going to rely on the mid to long irons quite a bit, especially out of the rough. So greens and regulation is only down at 62%. So that is below tour average as well. Obviously, if we are missing greens, we have to have a little bit of an around the green game here, and it's tricky. Scrambling is not easy here, and then even once you do get on the greens, not easy either. There's some tiers to this green. If you're not in the right spot, it's gonna make for some pretty long, interesting putts. Definitely want some three putt avoidance. There are a lot of missed putts inside of 10, 5 feet here. So really what you want is just someone that has an all around game. Distance definitely helps with the length of this course and the fact that you're going to be hitting so many long irons out of the rough. If you're playing some of the shorter guys, you do want guys that are going to live in the fairway. I mean, obviously that's the route that Harris English took. We could see, as I said, some rain leading up to this, and it's definitely going to be windy on Thursday and most likely Friday. We'll see how the weekend goes, but this is probably going to be a pretty difficult task here. So I think looking at some U.S. Open type conditions is definitely in play here. Now, obviously, Harris English just played 2 weeks ago. He won it at -8. So I wouldn't look at much more than that. Maybe somebody gets to -10, but probably unlikely, especially depending on how that wind gets. Now, if we dive into the field here, I mean, we can go through bets real quick because, I mean, it's pretty easy for me. I made one bet this week and still kind of nervous about it. This is not something I ever do. I bet Scotty plus 480. It feels gross. It should not feel this gross to bet the best golfer in the world. But obviously, he wasn't great on Sunday. I think that's just one round, really just the back nine. You know, the guy's coming out here trying to win. I don't think that once he knew he was out of contention, he just really didn't care too much. But I do think that if this is going to be an incredibly difficult task and basically test all of your game, he's pretty much what you want in those situations. Now, the fact that you can miss a lot of short putts here, maybe that comes and bites him in his ass, but you want guys that are good on approach, good off the tee, good around the green, and that is Scotty. So I do like that, and the fact that everyone could be missing short putts, and we don't need to run away at a -20 here, I definitely think plays to Scotty's strengths. So 480 was the best number I saw on him. I was actually interested in potentially betting Rory, but ended up going with Scotty instead. And as I said, I think the only time I've ever gone into a tournament with a single bullet was Bryson back at like the Rocket Mortgage or something a couple years ago. But it was basically just him and an absolute scrub field. And I think I got him at 7-1. And now I'm betting Scotty at an elevated event at 480. It feels a little bit gross, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, I stand by it. He is the best golfer in the world. I do think that, he hasn't played a ton at Farmers, but I do think that this definitely could suit him, this course and this setup. So that's what I got so far for that. I do have a top 20 bet on Zalatoris. I have top 30 bets on Bhatia, and don't know who the other one is. I got to look that up. But if we dive into DraftKings, obviously it starts at the top with Scotty. Now, he is expensive. He is 12,300. So I could see with his round that he had on Sunday and the price here, people might get away from him a little bit. So we might not see a 40% owned Scotty Scheffler. I do still expect him to be over 20%, but I think that you could maybe get a little leverage going heavy on Scotty here. Now, the fact that I have the outright, I think I'll probably just be equal to the field with that and try and get overweight a little bit on Rory. But I would expect Rory to actually be more popular than Scotty this week. But as I said, I already made the case for Scotty. Rory is someone that has just been playing incredible golf. I mean, basically last year, he finished his year winning the DP World Tour Championship. He came fourth in Dubai and then just won at Pebble. So the last 3 times out, he's basically his worst finish is a fourth. The guy mashes it off the tee. He's been hitting it straight. I do think that he definitely could win here. I don't know if he goes back to back with wins, but a top 5 finish is definitely in play. He has top 5 finishes here in his previous 2 appearances. So you do like that. I mean, 16th most recently at Torrey. He had, sorry, that was back in 2021. And then actually he came 7th that year in the US Open. So do like that. I do think that I want to get overweight on Rory this week. Justin Thomas, obviously he scores very well for DraftKings. So it is good to go to him, but I think I'm probably going to use him a little bit more in showdown, and there's some of these guys up here that I'd rather play over him. Obviously, Scotty and Rory being one, and I love Morikawa this week. Just as I said, if you're not a longer hitter, hitting out of the fairway is definitely something that you want to do here, and Morikawa basically lives in the fairway, so do like that. He's 8th in fairways gained over the last 24 rounds. He has significantly improved his around the green game. He is 5th in the field over the last 24 rounds. And the irons are starting to come back around as well, which is something that kind of got away from him last year. So if he is striking his irons as he used to, and you add the improved around the green and short game, I think he could definitely do some damage here. So at 10,000, I like him quite a bit. I have seen some people betting him. I would expect him to be pretty popular up here too. Next with Ludwig and Hideki, I definitely have some interest. I want to see what their ownership comes in at because, as I said, can't play all the guys up here, but I would probably like to play one of them. I kind of lean Hideki here, just similar to what I said with Colin. I mean, Hideki obviously great approach game. He's number 1 in the field around the green over the last 24 rounds. He is 11th from 200 plus yards, so hits the long irons very well. He's pretty good with the bogey avoidance. Kind of been off the tee and putting have been bothering him lately, but again, if everybody's struggling here with the putter, if he can make up for it elsewhere, I think that's fine. So I'd probably lean Hideki there. Next, Sung J M. I actually like him quite a bit. I have some interest there. If I wasn't going Scotty, I actually considered potentially betting Sung J. He's been up and down so far this year, but two top five finishes, and one of which was at Torrey Pines a couple weeks ago at the Farmers. He's only missed the cut one time here in 8 appearances. He came fourth this year, fourth in 2023, sixth in 2022. So Torrey is a place that he performs well. Statistically, looks great. Second around the green, six from 200 plus yards. He's top 15 in three putt avoidance and off the tee over the last 24 rounds. So I like where Sung Jae is at, and I definitely think this could be a place that suits him quite a bit. I could see Tommy Fleetwood actually being an interesting play here. I don't know if I'm going to get there, but I think he gets squeezed a bit with Sung Jae there, and then Taylor Pendrith I expect to be uber chalk at 9,000. Everyone I have seen betting him, and I would expect that he gets pretty popular here. Now, he's been playing very well. I do think he is talented. He has some of the things that you like here. Obviously, the driving distance goes a long way. But if he's out of control owned, I could make a case to go to some of these other guys here and skip over him. I'm probably going to play one of Shane Lowry or Jason Day. I lean Jason Day right now, but I do think that this is a setup that could fit Lowry. And then if the wind comes into play, if maybe it does get a little bit rainy, obviously that plays to him a little bit more. But I do like where Jason Day's game is at. I do think that he is headed in the right direction. And obviously, this is a place he's had a ton of success here in the past. He's won twice, five top five finishes at Torrey. So I probably lean Jason Day there. And then I love Russell Henley this week, 8,600. Hasn't played the Farmers, but I think he came 13th when they played the U.S. Open here. So do like that. First in fairways gained. So gotta absolutely love that. Has a pretty strong around the green game. Good with the three putt avoidance. He's second on those par fours, 450 to 500. So a lot of what you're looking for here, he has. Rasmus Højgaard at 8,300 seems like a pretty good price, playing very well. I don't know if I'm going to get there, but you can definitely make a case for it. He has the distance. I think that he has a pretty good combination, maybe not elite iron game and around the green, but I think it is good enough that you can make a case he could maybe do some damage here. And then Tony Finau is just he's been very good at Torrey, and the game's not exactly where you would want it to be right now, but I think he's still in a good enough spot at a good enough price that at 8,200 it definitely makes a lot of sense. Sepp Straka 8,000. I love him. I mean, he has been on a tear this week, this year. Obviously, already has a win. Second on approach over the last 24 round, 13th in fairways gained. He's great from 175 to 200. So I will be playing quite a bit of Sepp Straka as well. Will Zalatoris, bet the top 20 on him. Would have probably done the outright if I didn't do Scotty. He should have won here. Luke List edged him out in a playoff. So I do think that this is a place where Zalatoris could probably get a little bit popular and maybe have success here. I love Hovland this week. I was definitely going to bet Hovland, even still considered it after betting Scotty, but at with how much I had to allocate to Scotty, just couldn't do it. But I love Hovland this week as a Draftkings play, and I think it actually makes more sense as a Draftkings play, given how volatile he can be. Now, obviously, the around the green scares you a little bit, but I do think he has a lot of what you would want, and obviously he is great from over 200 yards, so definitely like to see that, and has the driving distance that you want here. Probably going to skip over a lot of these guys in the upper 7K range. Have a little bit of interest in Sam Stevens. Came back to earth a little bit last week, but obviously he performed well here a couple weeks ago. I think, excuse me, I think the off the tee game definitely helps out quite a bit. So I might play him. I want to see what his ownership gets to, but I love Adam Scott here. I like where his game is at. Obviously, he hasn't been elite here, but at 7,500, you don't really need him to win. You just need him to basically perform pretty well here. And just jog my memory, that's the other guy that I did the top 30 on. So I love Adam Scott here. I do think that if you wanted to make a top 20 bet on him, I think that's actually fine as well. But he's in the top 20 in approach, in the top 20 around the green. He's eighth from 450 to 500, top 25 off the tee. So has a lot of what you like. And as I said, the game has been looking pretty good. He's actually been putting much better. So I like Scott there at 7,500. Wyndham Clark, probably going to sprinkle him in. I worry a little bit if he does get popular. I'm fine going elsewhere, but 7,300, a good price for him. Obviously flashed a little bit last week, albeit only in the first round. Kind of fell back apart after that, but he has the driving distance, obviously has performed well in US Open conditions before. He can strike it pretty well with the mid to long irons and kind of mash it off the tee. So I don't mind Wyndham Clark here, especially if he can get a hot putter. I do like Bhatia quite a bit. I think the top 30 on him definitely makes some sense here. He's a guy that doesn't have a ton of distance, but he's not exactly short, and he's going to live in the fairway here as well. So I think if he can get a hot putter, he can actually make some noise this week. Then kind of few and far between getting down here a little bit. I have interest in Aaron Rai. Didn't look good at Torrey a couple weeks ago, but difficult conditions I think suit him well. Another guy that he's going to be in the fairway consistently. So I'm considering Aaron Rai there. Gary Woodland, I do think could get a little bit of ownership if he gets out of control. Maybe I get away from him there, but first in driving distance over the last 24 rounds. The guy pounds it out there. He's actually been hitting a good amount of fairways. He's fifth in strokes gained approach over the last 24 rounds. So do like that. Eighth in bogey avoidance. So if it's going to play difficult here, I actually like Woodland quite a bit. I want to play Lucas Glover as well. I do think that his approach game could suit here. And again, another guy that common theme. If we're not huge off the tee, living in the fairway is what we want. And Glover is definitely an accurate driver of the golf ball. So I do like him here as well. It's so sad that Max Homa is broken. I don't think I'm going to play him, but if you are playing MME and building out 20, 150 lineups, maybe mixing him in is fine. He's obviously won here. He's performed well in the past. So maybe you're just relying on the course history and hoping he comes back to a happy place and performs well. Because it's crazy to see Max Homa at 6,500 playing at Torrey Pines. But I'd probably rather play Justin Rose. I do think that he has some upside here at 6,400. Obviously, he's basically been a miss the cut or top 20 guy, but played well at Pebble. I do think that this is a tournament where Rose could maybe make some noise. And then I'm not really crazy about a lot of guys down here. I mean, maybe Jake Knapp at min price, 6,000. Shout out Zach from the Mad Lab Discord. Said that he played Torrey last year, and they said that Knapp used to basically play there all the time. It's a place that he's incredibly comfortable. I do think it's a place that could fit him, and obviously he has a little bit of distance and could play well off the tee. Came 32nd here a couple weeks ago, so not incredible, but if it's a place that he's comfortable at min price, if you're going with Scotty, or even if you wanted to try and jam Scotty and Rory in a lineup, maybe it makes some sense. I don't know that I'm going to get there, but if you are playing enough lineups, maybe it makes some sense. But that's basically what we're looking at for this week. I do think it's going to be an interesting tournament. I love the fact that we have an elevated event and have all the guys here, basically except for Xander. I'm pretty dialed in with what I want to do at the top. Couple decisions that I got to make. And as I said, I am terrified of going into this with a single bullet. You have the best golfers on tour right now, except for Xander, and I'm betting one guy at under 5-1. So we'll see what happens. I mean, not something I generally do, but I do think that the situation calls for a potential Scotty win here. And maybe I can for once be on the right side of that and not finishing second to him. So fingers crossed, but definitely excited for this week. It's interesting finally having football in the rearview mirror. Gonna miss it, but at the same time, it's nice to have the bankroll allocated strictly to golf and not have to be worrying about leaving a little bit extra for the NFL. So probably all the more reason why I was more comfortable throwing a bunch of money on Scotty this week. But that's going to do it for this week. As always, thank you for listening. Leave a 5-star review. I know a lot of you have in the past. Guess what? You can do it again. So go ahead, leave those 5-star reviews. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Hit that like button. All that good stuff goes a very long way and does help out the podcast quite a bit. But that's going to do it for me. I'm your host, Derek Helm. And remember,
just have fun out there.